Whenever you trade a security, if you're an active trader, you want to put in stops at the same time if you're putting in, let's say, a buy order to help minimize your losses on the downside, because, of course, nothing's perfect. So you want to help minimize those losses, and in fact, that's also maximizing your gains by minimizing your losses. So we're going to talk about this important aspect, and we're going to look at three ways of doing a stop loss, a stop limit, and an interesting one called a trailing stop order. So we're going to cover those three here in this lesson. And you'll want to be familiar with all three because you can use them in different situations. So a stop loss is the real key one, kind of like a market order is like it's used all the time for buying and selling. A stop loss is used all the time as well. And really what it does, it's a stop order that automatically converts into a market order, in effect a sell market order, when you reach a predetermined price. That's the stop price is reached. So if the security falls and the price falls to a certain point, it hits my stop loss, the order is going to be automatically executed at a market order. And at that point, the ordinary rules of market orders apply. So the order is guaranteed to be executed. They're going to execute it, but you don't know the final exact price. I mean, if things are moving quickly, you might see a little bit more, loss from that. It's going to be executed at the market price and executed quickly. Now, a stop limit gives you a little more protection around that. In contrast, a stop limit order automatically converts into a limit order when the stop price is reached. Remember that lesson around buy and sell limit orders. So the minimum price you are willing to accept, so this would be a stop limit, would be the minimum price you're willing to accept when selling a security. So as with other limit orders, your stop limit order may not be executed depending on the price movement of the security. So let's take a look at an example of both of these so it kind of brings that home. So let's say you want to buy a security here. Here we're looking at that upward trend line here, and we are going to buy on that day that we've got highlighted. And let's say you end up placing a market order and it's executed for 72.75. So that actually happened. So let's say that happened. At the same time, or that's the order you placed, that is. And you could or should place a stop loss or a stop limit at some point as part of this. And let's say you place a stop loss at 70. So if the price was to fall down to 70 at some point, either now or into the future, could be days from now, weeks, months, years, whatever. If sometime in the future it falls down to 70 and hits 70, then it's automatically going to execute your stop loss order and turn it into a market sell order and execute that at 70. You could also place, or alternatively, you could place a stop limit. You place a stop limit, there's two pieces you put in. One is the price as far as the stop loss being active. Let's say in this case you like that 70, so you're going to put that in. But it puts a limit on what you would sell it at. So you'd say, okay, I want to put my limit at 69, which basically means you're not going to sell or tell the online broker, and it's all automated, don't sell below this price. So two things have to happen. Let's say I bought at 72.75, I put in a stop limit, I say, okay, my stop loss will become active at 70, in a stop limit order. And then if it hits 70, it's going to try to execute that. But let's say things fall quickly and reaches 69 or 68 or 67. Once it hits that 69, then nothing's going to happen. Your order won't be executed. So as you can see here, the idea is it's protecting you from something where it's going way down in price, and you're like, well, if it goes way down in price, maybe I think it'll come bouncing back up again. Or I know my security, if it goes down far in one day, it tends to rebound back the next day. So I don't want to sell at that point. I want to just have a stop limit at 70, but if it starts going below 69, I'm okay. Now, obviously, as you can see, there's no end in sight. So you want to be able to watch that, and you might need to cancel that order and just place a sell order, a market sell order, for example, if it starts going to 65, 64, 50, whatever it might be. So that's understanding how you might use those two orders. The most common, of course, is just using just a stop loss order. So once it hits it, it's executed, you're out. The third type that's very interesting is a trailing stop order. And it's one way to help protect gains and limit losses automatically is by placing this trailing stop order. And with this kind of order, you set a stop price as either a fixed amount or a percentage of the current market price as the price, let's say, hopefully goes up. So you can choose that that you'll be entering in there. So let's say, for example, you bought something at 72.75, right? Let's go back to our example here. And it's executed at 72.75. You could place a trailing stop order of, let's say, 3. So that would be basically, If it goes below, as it drops below 3, whatever the current market price is, then the sell order would be executed. So in this example, I would say we bought it, ended up being bought at 72.75. Then at 69.75, a sell order would be executed if it ever dropped down that, because you set your trailing stop order at, in effect, at 3. You could set that at whatever. You could set it at 1 or 2 or 50. You could set whatever you want it to be at. But the idea behind this is the trailing stop, the beauty of that is it's going to follow behind that market price. So if the market price, let's say, went up to, let's say, 80, your trailing stop order would be at 77. So you see how it's kind of locking in the profits as it goes up. So if we look at our example a little bit further, and now we can see what later happened, let's say, and this was a real security, so this is what really did happen. It's following it as the price went up, and the price peaked, as you see in the range of prices there, at the very peak, that top long upper shadow, about 74.50, let's call it 74.50. So then your stop loss, or your trailing stop order would be executed at 71.50. So you'd be locking in some of those gains, right? Because you bought it, or actually you wouldn't be, because if you bought at 72.75, if you let it go down to 71.50 as far as a trailing stop, then it would execute and you'd actually lose a little bit on this. So this is where you might want to be, adjusting your stop orders as you go to as well. Or just, your security, if it has a good trend, it's going to keep up going further. And if it doesn't, fine, you want to get out. But the idea is, let's say that did go up to 80, now your stop limit would be, your trailing stop order, that is, would be now at 77, and you would have locked in a nice profit. So that's the idea of trailing stop orders, is that they basically follow behind as your price goes up and then are executed there. And by the same token, when you first place your order, if the current price drops right away and never does go up, it's going to execute once it drops, let's say in this example, once it goes down 3. So basically, stop loss, most common, just to kind of minimize your losses there, most commonly used. Stop limit, you can have a little bit of extra control on it, is what it does. And the trailing stop order is nice, especially as you start seeing things walk up in terms of gains, that you can kind of lock in those gains by adjusting your stop levels as well. And with all these, you can cancel and change your orders as things change in your in your current trade.